Well, I'm delighted, Grant, that you chose to come back for this week. Thank you.
Well, it's nice to be here.
Yeah, Dr. Grant Mullen, you've been an anesthesiologist, a family practitioner, marriage counselor, and you've taken all that, and what are you doing right now?
Well, now, actually, my wife and I, we travel around in churches, and then we host transformation weekends. We do marriage retreats and marriage transformation, and then personal transformation weekends, which we call Discover Joy.
And just prior to this taping, you were sharing with me some of those details. It sounds so fascinating. It sounds so helpful. And I just don't want to say that glibly, because today we want to pick up on the title of your book, which is called Emotionally Free. And the website is going to be given there on the bottom of the screen, but you can also go to Amazon and order these little trinkets. And it's a powerful book, and you've broken it down into three areas: body, soul, and spirit. Explain that just briefly.
Yeah, the Bible says there are three parts to humans, and each of these parts have an enormous impact on how we think, feel, and relate to others, including God.
Okay.
And so this has a tremendous effect on everybody's life, but certainly your marriage as well. And so in the physical realm, there are mental health conditions which are physical, like depression, anxiety, and mood swings. They have a big impact on how you think, feel, and relate to others. And in the spiritual realm, you can't see it, but we are spiritual beings, and we are being influenced constantly by what's happening in the spiritual world. And so the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness are competing for your attention. And so Satan is always wanting to put his thoughts in your mind, and God wants to put his thoughts in your mind, and you choose which thought you're going to pay attention to.
And that is so critical, isn't it?
Yeah, and so we have to choose. And so we're in a spiritual battle for our thoughts. And then the third category is your soul, which is really your personality, your mind, will, and emotions. And that, of course, has a huge impact on how you think, feel, and relate to others. So I just divide the book into those three parts. So the first third of the book is how to assess your mental health. The second third of the book is how to assess, are you under any kind of spiritual attack and what to do about it. And the last third is how to do an inventory of your personality to see where your baggage is and what you should do about it so you could be healed from it.
Okay, so as a guy, I'm listening to you talk, and there's a part of me saying, okay, just get on with it, solve my problem. I want to have a good marriage. Mm-hmm. What makes a good marriage?
Well, a good marriage, or actually, what's a healthy relationship?
Okay.
A good marriage is a reflection of a healthy relationship. And healthy relationships are giving relationships.
Ooh.
Okay, so a giving relationship.
So I can't be a narcissist?
Exactly. Yes, that would be, you'd be on your own very quickly.
You mean, isn't life all about me?
Yes. Yes. Well, a lot of people feel that way, actually.
Well, they do.
But a healthy relationship is a giving relationship, and in a Christian context, that means you're receiving all your affirmation and your core emotional needs from God, and so you have an overflow for your spouse. Whereas an unhealthy relationship or a dysfunctional relationship, which is very common. And the only reason I learned about this is because I had a dysfunctional relationship, and this was pointed out to me. A dysfunctional...
By the counselor or
yes.
by your wife?
The counselor, okay.
But did your wife ever talk about that?
No. We just knew there was something wrong. We had no idea what. And that's the great thing about counselors. They look from the outside and say, there's your problem.
So let me ask the question. You knew there was something wrong. Mm-hmm. What did that look like? What did wrong look like?
Oh, well, we weren't arguing. We became emotionally frozen with each other.
Emotionally frozen?
Yeah, and so we became unresponsive to each other. And so it was like a shutdown. So we weren't arguing at all, and there was no infidelity. It was just, we froze up. And so the counselor had to point out what was wrong. And so that's why counseling is so important. It's hard to solve your own problems by yourself.
How long did it take to thaw the plumbing out?
A year and a half of constant counseling. Remember, we were seen separately. The first time we went to the counselor, he said, the problem isn't the person you married, it's the baggage you brought into your marriage. And this was such a revelation to us because we realized that our past had such a huge impact on how we related to our spouse. And so people say, oh no, you're making me angry, or you're the problem in our marriage, but it's actually the baggage you brought into your marriage. And so that's why in our marriage seminars, we focus on healing of the heart as the key to a successful marriage, rather than change your behavior. Because we've attended marriage seminars ourselves, which is about change your behavior. But if you don't change the heart that's motivating that behavior, the behavior change isn't going to last.
No, it's going to run out of gas, isn't it?
It's going to run out of gas really fast because you're just acting. But if you can heal the heart, then the behavior, you don't even have to tell someone how to change the behavior. They're just, their heart is so full of God's love, they have so much to spill out over to their spouse in a healthy relationship. So an unhealthy relationship is a taking relationship, so that you're trying to take from your spouse what you think you need to meet all your emotional needs.
So you've already answered my next question. You didn't know that, but the question was, and I think we should go back and revisit it again, take what you've just said. As a guy, and maybe as many people, I want to look and say, okay, here's a problem that I'm aware of in relationships. One of the big ones is people cheat. They have other affairs, whether it's in their mind or the actual affair, they live it out. The statistics on it are staggering. And Jesus also talked about, committing adultery in your mind. Like, what's that all about? I think we're all guilty, certainly me. And I don't want to say that, but that's just the reality. I'm a broken person. But when it comes to actually the physical act of breaking the marriage vows, or maybe a lot of people are listening today, they're not married, but they say they're in a committed relationship, and then they find out their partner's cheating on them. What causes people to do that? Because when a couple comes together, whether they're married or choosing to live together, I don't think they're initially saying, I want to see if I can do some intentional things to cause us to drift apart.
So what you're saying is,
analyze
what causes
an affair.
people to, well, first you drift apart, then you have an affair.
Okay.
The affair doesn't just come out of the blue. There's been a drift before the affair. And so the most common cause of drift leading to an affair is when you're in an unhealthy relationship. Or in other words, you're expecting your spouse to meet all of your emotional needs, which of course is impossible. And so then if your spouse doesn't meet all your emotional needs, you'll be attracted to anyone who you think will meet all your emotional needs. And so then if there's someone at work or somewhere, you say, I feel so good when I'm with you, then of course, and there's a dark side to this too. Satan is saying, look at them. They'll meet all your emotional needs. They're at home, they're useless, but they'll meet all your emotional needs. And so you're tempted and you're drawn to that direction.
So when you were emotionally frozen in your relationship, were you tempted to go that route in your thinking?
No, because you see, because I was in a committed covenantal relationship, which of course excludes living together. See, that's another huge problem with living together.
Let's come to that in a minute. We'll come to that one in a minute, okay.
Yeah, because if you're not in a covenantal relationship, then you're just in a temporary situation and you're free to leave anytime you want.
But you're in a covenant relationship with your wife, but there was not the emotional closeness.
Right, that's right. So we knew we were struggling. So, but what we committed to, and the key to a marriage transformation is if both partners commit to finding a solution. Of course, the big problem I find is one partner is interested in finding a solution, the other one's not. But if both partners are committed to finding a solution, with God's help, they will. I mean, there's no problem we can have in a relationship that God can't help us solve if we're both committed to the solution.
That's an encouraging truth.
And so we both were committed to each other, and we said there has to be a reason why we're feeling this way, and the counselor helped walk us through. And that's why counseling is so valuable, because they have a different perspective. And they can look from outside and see things that you can't because you're in a fog. And so why people then drift is most of us, and if you didn't marry for money, you married because you think your spouse is going to meet all your emotional needs.
Right.
And that's just because we're not taught.
I thought it was because I was in love.
Yeah. You complete me. I feel so good when I'm with you. Okay?
Do you write Hallmark cards as well?
Yeah. And that's a recipe for a disaster, okay?
Okay.
But you see, when people realize that they have core emotional needs that only God can meet, and if you're trying to get your spouse to meet your core emotional needs that only God can meet, that will never work, and you will always feel incomplete. And so that's what happens to most of us. We marry the person who we think is going to give us acceptance, security, meaning, purpose, all these things that only God can do. And then if they don't perform, then we say, well, you're not meeting all my emotional needs. And well, maybe they will.